YouTube's analytics tell me that you guys want videos on smartwatches, and I get it. They're new and exciting, but for many of us, there's also an element of morbid curiosity. The smartwatch represents an existential threat that's not been faced by the watch industry since the birth of the Quartz wristwatch. I've struggled to come up with ideas on this topic for a while, I will freely admit. But that was until I saw the Apple Watch's sales figures. They've shipped over 300 million units, a ridiculous number of watches sold, dwarfing Rolex, making the entire Swatch Group look like loose change and far surpassing Casio. That's when it hit me. The smartwatch hasn't done so well because it is new and exciting technology, but because smartwatch companies sell these watches to us in a completely different way to normal watches, and the traditional watch industry needs to pay attention to this and fast. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Doug's Watches, the Thinking Watch channel. Here I talk art, design, history, theory, philosophy, and how these all relate to the world of watches. And if that sounds good to you, do make sure to like and subscribe. 300 million Apple Watches sold. That is one for every 26 people on the planet. Smartwatches are a big business, and that's ignoring the contributions to the market of Samsung, Fitbit, Garmin, Whoop, and of course the luxury watch brands that have given this all a crack as well, so Tag and Hublot mainly. And even though these have been around for a while, it's easy enough to see how smartwatches could be perceived as an existential threat to the world of Swiss and mechanical and even quartz watches at times. But I don't think every single one of those 300 million Apple Watches sold represents a lost sale for Seiko, Tissot, or even Longines. After all, the individual who wears an Apple Watch with a suit and to a wedding in this day and age, I don't think was ever going to buy a more traditional watch, thanks to its emotion, heritage, and prestige. Instead, they'd likely just opt for a naked wrist, a sight rather unbecoming if you ask me. These shouldn't be viewed as lost sales, but more so potential sales to be gained for some watch brands, that is. So how do people buy watches? They research endlessly online, read reviews, go to a jeweler's, have a complimentary coffee, beer, or champagne with a dealer. It's a slower process. But that person sporting an Apple Watch at a wedding reception, they got their watch in a different way, a more modern way, a way that watches simply have never been sold in. See, nobody buys Apple Watches or Samsung Galaxy Watch 78s outright. They might buy a Garmin with golf tracking or a Fitbit at New Year's, but nobody, okay, comment section, I'm sure some of you will have, but very few people in the world that I have met spend the £219 on the Apple Watch SE, the £399 on the Apple Watch Series 10, or £799 on an Apple Watch Ultra 2. These are items that you get added to your phone bill, either as a freebie loss leader to get you to upgrade to a new device, or a way of adding £20 a month to your mobile phone contract, and you still leave the transaction feeling like you've won, even though you'll spend twice the RRP of the damn Apple Watch on it over the 36-month contract. These are financed purchases, just like so many things in modern society. In the UK, 90% of new car sales are financed. 42% of consumers have used buy now, pay later services like Klarna. And of course, we have more traditional forms of finance like mortgages and monthly payments for insurance. The culture of finance, I think, is only due to grow further as people finance more and get more and more subscription services begging for their money month to month. As this grows, I think financing is more likely to become the default option with many purchases, especially larger ones. I think this is so because the wait to save gets longer and longer, so you may as well just add the $9.99 a month to your budget and call it a day. But in watches, I don't think that culture is there, or at least not there yet. The watch community looks down on finance, and probably rightly so. It is very rarely wise to get a loan for a depreciating asset, especially one that doesn't sustain your existence. There's no argument of needs must when buying a Rolex. It is not a necessity. For a long time, probably the closest we got to finance in watches was people using their credit cards to buy pieces in the AD. Potentially a wise move if you actually settle the balance, net your points, and don't incur any interest. But things have been changing. If you go to nearly any major watch dealer with an online presence, so in the UK, basically those within the Watches of Switzerland group, so Watches of Switzerland, Goldsmiths, and Mappin and Webb, you'll find finance options available online. Often V12 finance or a PayPal credit system. But that's not the main price that's put forward. it's still sticker price first, the RRP first, not the monthly. So in the case of a steel automatic Cartier Santos, £6,750. It's then beneath it the £150 a month with whatever APR. This is the inverse of how most people buy a smartwatch. It's done in storefronts where the monthly comes up first. So that's in your phone contract or part of a finance agreement, be that Apple or buy now, pay later systems. £219 or £799 is a lot of money. It is still a sizable purchase. In watches, we often forget that. But the retailers stocking Apple Watches and their Samsung and Garmin cousins, they remember this. They've learned that to get people to buy the luxury product in their space, so the iPhone, it needs to seem manageable, accessible, and not like a mammoth undertaking, which the iPhone was when it launched. And that's why the smartwatch has sold so many units, and the traditional watch world has a thing or two to learn from this. Now, I'm not saying we should be financing our watches. Of course, within the luxury watch world, the inaccessibility of many brands is a driving factor. Rolex, Audemars Piguet, Patek, Richard Mille have a mystique because not everyone can have one. To put a £99 a month for 10 years finance deal in place for a Rolex Submariner at an AD would devalue the brand massively. But accessibility of more affordable watches is the problem holding back the industry, as far as I see it. With over 300 million Apple Watches out there in the wild, that means there were 300 million sales of wrist-worn items under £1,000 people don't really need and provide the same functionality that they can probably already get from their phone. This establishes a demand for accessible wrist-worn accessories, and this has been proven time and time again with the continued success of Casio and, of course, the Moonswatch hype. So who should actually try and benefit from this? Well, it is your affordable watch brands. Microbrands have often led the way on this. With less brand recognition, I think they often understand that they need to remove any and all barriers to making a sale. So, case in point, Fears, Yema and Christopher Ward have, as long as I've been aware of them at least, been very vocal on their websites of the financing options that they offer. The Tissot website clearly lists Klarna as an option. And you know what? Maybe that's a reason the Tissot PRX has done so well. You can impulse buy one and penny pinch for a few months after, not beforehand. As after all, if you're not really into watches, you're not going to save £600 for a Powermatic 80 Tissot. You've got a life to live, and the desire for a nice watch is fleeting. But then contrast these with the website of Seiko, where I'm often not even sure how to buy their watches, and it's a different story altogether. It's this understanding of inaccessibility that I believe drives forward an affordable watch brand in this day and age. And I think if a watch brand, traditional big name affordable brand, or newer micro brand, if they're able to figure out how to make their watches as accessible and as purchasable to the average consumer as a smartwatch, I think they'll be on to a real winner. But that's going to be a hard task for many, as what can a normal watch be an upsell from? Comment section, I'll leave that for you to decide. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, do please like and subscribe. It helps me out massively. If you want more Doug's watches and a few other perks, do consider becoming a channel member as well. It helps me out a little bit more. And as ever, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.